The bass pounded through the speakers as Natasha Sterling stepped out of her white Mercedes, her designer heels clicking against the pavement. She was 22, beautiful and completely untouchable. Her dark hair fell in perfect waves, her outfit cost more than most people's monthly rent and she knew it. Natasha. Her friends called from the entrance of the exclusive club. She waved, her smile bright but somehow empty. This was her life. Parties every weekend. Never hearing the word, no. Her father, Richard Sterling, owned half the real estate in the city. The Sterling name opened every door, solved every problem, bought every desire. Natasha had never worked a day in her life. Why would she? Everything was already hers. At university she barely attended classes. Her professors tolerated it because of her family's generous donations. Her classmates either envied her or wanted to be her. She had a tight circle of friends, all from wealthy families, all living the same golden, consequence-free existence. Well, almost all of them. There was Maya, her only friend who wasn't from old money. Maya was on scholarship, worked part-time at the campus library, and somehow Natasha tolerated her presence. Not because she particularly cared about Maya's struggles, but because Maya was smart, funny, and never asked Natasha for money. "Do you ever think about what you want to do after graduation?" Maya asked one afternoon as they sat in the campus cafe. Natasha sipped her iced latte and shrugged. "Probably travel for a year. Paris, Milan, Tokyo. Then maybe I'll work for my father's company. Or not. I haven't decided." Maya smiled but said nothing. She'd learned long ago that Natasha lived in a completely different world. Everything changed on a random Tuesday in October. Professor Chin announced a new transfer student joining their business class. "Everyone, this is Elena Rivera. She's joining us from community college. Please make her feel welcome." Elena walked to an empty seat near the back, her head down. She wore simple jeans and a plain sweater, her backpack looked old and worn, and she carried herself like someone trying hard to be invisible. Natasha barely glanced at her. Over the next few weeks, Natasha noticed the whispers. The other students talked about Elena behind her back. "Did you see her lunch? She brings the same sandwich every day. I heard she works at a convenience store until midnight. Why would someone like that even come here? She doesn't fit in." Natasha said nothing. It wasn't her problem. She had her own world to worry about. Parties to attend, outfits to plan, drama with her friends to navigate. When students openly mocked Elena's worn textbook or her outdated phone, Natasha simply looked away. Not her circus, not her monkeys. Maya, however, befriended Elena. They studied together at the library. Natasha noticed but didn't care. Then one afternoon everything shifted. Natasha was leaving campus, scrolling through her phone, when she nearly collided with someone. "Sorry," a deep voice said. She looked up, annoyed, ready to snap at whoever had gotten in her way. But the words died in her throat. The man standing before her was probably mid-20s, tall with dark hair and striking features. But it wasn't just his looks that stopped her. It was something else, the way he carried himself. Tired but strong. Worn but dignified. His clothes were simple, a work uniform with Rivera stitched on the pocket, but somehow he made even that look good. "My fault," Natasha managed, her usual confidence momentarily shaken. He gave a slight nod and walked past her toward the campus entrance. Natasha turned to watch him go, her heart doing something it had never done before. Actually racing for someone who hadn't even noticed her. "Natasha." Maya appeared beside her. "You okay? You look weird." "Who was that?" Natasha asked. Maya followed her gaze and smiled. "That's Marcus Rivera. Elena's older brother. He picks her up sometimes when he gets off his afternoon shift." "Elena's brother?" Natasha repeated. "Yeah. He's basically raised her since their parents died. Works like 3 jobs to support them both. He's pretty amazing actually." Natasha barely heard the rest. Her mind was already spinning. For the first time in her life she wanted something she couldn't just have. The next day Natasha did something she'd never done before. She sat next to Elena in class. Elena looked up, surprised. "Hi." "Hey," Natasha said with her most charming smile. "I realized we've never really talked. I'm Natasha." "I know who you are," Elena said carefully. Over the next week, Natasha inserted herself into Elena's life. She offered to share notes. She invited Elena to study groups. She asked about her day. Elena was polite but guarded. Maya watched the whole thing with suspicion. "What are you doing?" Maya finally asked Natasha one afternoon. "What do you mean? You've never cared about Elena. Now suddenly you're her best friend? What's going on? Can't I just be nice?" Maya raised an eyebrow. "You, just nice? Without an angle?" Natasha didn't answer, but Maya was right. She had an angle. She was waiting for Marcus. 2 weeks into her sudden friendship with Elena, Natasha finally got what she wanted. She happened to be leaving the library at the same time Elena was getting picked up. Marcus pulled up in an old Honda and Natasha made sure to walk out with Elena. "Oh, is this your brother?" Natasha asked as if surprised. Elena nodded. "Yeah. Marcus, this is Natasha. She's in my business class." Marcus glanced at Natasha through the car window and gave a polite nod. "Nice to meet you." "You too," Natasha said, turning on every ounce of charm she possessed. "Elena's told me so much about you." "That's nice," Marcus said, but his tone was neutral, almost dismissive. "Elena, we need to go. I have another shift in an hour." Elena got in the car and they drove off, leaving Natasha standing there stunned. He'd barely looked at her. Men never barely looked at her. Over the next month, Natasha tried everything. She found excuses to be around when Marcus picked Elena up. She laughed louder, dressed better, made sure he couldn't miss her. Marcus remained politely indifferent. Finally, Elena confronted her. They were studying in the library when Elena closed her textbook and looked directly at Natasha. "Why are you suddenly being so nice to me?" Natasha blinked. "What do you mean? A month ago you didn't even know I existed. Now you're always around. Always asking about my family. Always there when Marcus picks me up." Elena's voice wasn't angry, just tired. "Just tell me what you want." Natasha felt heat rise to her cheeks. He could lie. He probably should lie. But instead her arrogance kicked in. "Fine. You want the truth." She leaned back in her chair. "I like your brother. I think he's attractive. And yes, I started talking to you because I wanted to get to know him." Elena stared at her for a long moment. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. "What's funny?" Natasha demanded. You're used to getting whatever you want, aren't you?" "Usually yes." "Well, this time it's different." Elena gathered her books. "I'll tell Marcus you're interested. But fair warning, he's not going to care." "Everyone cares about me," Natasha said, but even she heard how hollow it sounded. Elena gave her a pitying look. "Not Marcus. He doesn't have time for games. And definitely not time for rich girls who see people as toys." She walked away, leaving Natasha sitting alone in the library, feeling something she'd never felt before. Doubt. That evening, Elena told Marcus about Natasha's confession. They were in their tiny apartment, Elena doing homework at the kitchen table while Marcus made dinner after getting home from his second job of the day. "So this rich girl in my class basically admitted she's only been nice to me to get to you," Elena said, almost amused. Marcus stirred the pasta without looking up. And she wants to know if you're interested." "I'm not." "I figured. But I told her I'd ask." Marcus finally looked at his sister. "Elena, I work 3 jobs. I'm taking night classes trying to finish my degree. Every spare minute I have goes to making sure you can stay in school and have what you need. I don't have time for relationships. And definitely not with some spoiled rich girl who thinks people are accessories." Elena nodded. He knew. She'd always known. Marcus had been 15 when their parents died in the car crash. Elena had been 11. In one horrible moment they'd lost everything. Their parents, their home, their stability. Marcus could have given up. He could have let the system separate them, put Elena in foster care while he aged out. But he didn't. At 15 he'd fought to become her legal guardian. He'd worked every job he could find. Dishwasher, stock boy, janitor, anything that would hire a desperate teenager. He dropped out of high school temporarily to work full-time, then went back and finished at night. He'd scrimped and saved and sacrificed everything so Elena could have a normal childhood, or as normal as possible. Now, at 26, he was still working multiple jobs while taking night classes toward the business degree he'd started years ago. Elena was 22 and in university because Marcus had made it happen. He didn't date. He didn't go out. He didn't have time for anything except survival and making sure his sister had a future. "You should tell her I'm not interested," Marcus said, turning back to the stove. Politely but clearly. Elena nodded. Will do. But even as she agreed, she noticed something. When Marcus thought she wasn't looking, he had a small, thoughtful expression on his face. Maybe he'd noticed Natasha more than he wanted to admit. The next day, Elena delivered the message. Marcus said he's not interested. He works 3 jobs and goes to school at night. He doesn't have time for relationships, especially not with. Elena trailed off. With girls like me? Natasha finished, her jaw tight. His words were rich girls who see people as toys. The rejection hit Natasha like a physical blow. She'd been turned down before, but never like this. Never so completely, so dismissively. Her first instinct was anger. How dare he? Didn't he know who she was? What she could offer him? For the next week, Natasha did what she always did when someone told her no. She doubled down. She showed up at the campus building where Marcus took night classes. She accidentally went to the coffee shop where he worked his evening shift. She sent expensive gifts through Elena. A new watch, designer clothes. Elena returned every single one. He doesn't want your gifts, Natasha. Everyone wants something, Natasha insisted. Not Marcus, Elena said quietly. The only thing he wants is time. And you can't buy that. Finally, Marcus confronted her himself. It was late evening at the coffee shop. Natasha had come in for the 3rd time that week, ordering complicated drinks just to talk to him. When the shop emptied, Marcus walked over to her table. Can we talk? His voice was calm but firm. Of course, Natasha smiled. Stop coming here. Stop sending gifts. Stop using my sister to get to me. Natasha's smile faltered. I just want to get to know you. No, you don't. You want to acquire me. Like I'm another handbag or car. Marcus's eyes were tired but direct. I've watched girls like you my whole life. Everything's a game. Everything's about what you want when you want it. That's not fair. Isn't it? Marcus leaned against the table. Have you ever worked for anything? Ever struggled? Ever had to choose between paying rent or eating? Natasha opened her mouth but no words came. I didn't think so, Marcus continued. My sister and I, we've been surviving since we were kids. Our parents died when I was 15 and Elena was 11. I've been working ever since. Washing dishes, mopping floors, whatever it takes. I put Elena through school. I'm trying to finish my own degree. I don't have time or energy for someone who thinks love is about showing up and looking pretty. It's not like that. Then what's it like, Natasha? Marcus's voice softened slightly, but his words cut deep. Because from where I'm standing, you've ignored my sister for weeks until you decided you wanted something from her. You've treated her like she's invisible. Just like everyone else at that school. The accusation hung in the air. Natasha wanted to argue to defend herself. But she couldn't. Because he was right. I'm not interested, Marcus said, his tone final. Please leave us alone. He walked back behind the counter and Natasha sat frozen, tears pricking her eyes for the first time in years. She'd been rejected before but never confronted with the truth of who she actually was. And it hurt more than anything she'd ever felt. For the next week, Natasha stayed away from Elena, from Marcus, from the coffee shop. She tried to go back to her normal life. Parties, shopping, meaningless fun. But something had shifted. She couldn't stop thinking about Marcus's words. About Elena's struggles that she deliberately ignored. About the way she'd treated people her whole life. Like they were invisible until she wanted something from them. One Tuesday afternoon, something happened that changed everything. Natasha was leaving her luxury penthouse apartment to head to class when she saw Elena stumbling on the sidewalk near campus. She looked pale, unsteady. Before Natasha could decide what to do, Elena collapsed. Natasha rushed over, panic flooding through her. Elena, can you hear me? Elena's eyes fluttered. I'm fine. Just dizzy. You're not fine. When did you last eat? Elena didn't answer, which was answer enough. Natasha called an ambulance, rode with her to the hospital and waited while doctors examined her. The diagnosis: malnutrition and exhaustion. She's been skipping meals and working too many hours, the doctor told Natasha, assuming she was family. Her body basically shut down. She needs rest, proper nutrition, and to cut back on work hours. When Marcus arrived an hour later, still in his work uniform, he looked panicked. Where is she? Is she okay? She's sleeping, Natasha said quietly. They're keeping her overnight for observation. She collapsed from not eating enough and working too much. Marcus sank into a waiting room chair, his head in his hands. I should have noticed. I should have. It's not your fault. Yes, it is. I'm supposed to take care of her. That's my job. Natasha sat beside him and for the first time really looked at him. Not as the attractive guy she wanted to date, but as a human being carrying impossible weight. How long have you been doing this? She asked softly. 11 years. Since our parents died. That's a long time to carry everything alone. Marcus looked at her, his eyes red with exhaustion and worry. What choice did I have? He's my sister. She's all I have left. Something cracked open in Natasha's chest. A realization she'd been avoiding. She'd been so focused on wanting Marcus that she'd never actually seen him. Never seen Elena. Never seen anyone beyond what they could do for her. I'm sorry, Natasha whispered. For what? For everything. For using Elena to get to you. For not seeing her struggles. For thinking I could just have you like you were some prize to win. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You were right about me. I've been awful. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Why did you stay? At the hospital. Why didn't you just leave? Because. Natasha struggled to find words. Because somewhere along the way I stopped seeing Elena as a means to an end. And I realized I've been blind my whole life. She stood up. I paid the hospital bills. Anonymously, so don't argue. And I'll make sure Elena has what she needs. Food, books, whatever. Not as a way to get to you. Just because it's the right thing to do. She walked away before Marcus could respond, her heart heavier than it had ever been. For the first time in her life, Natasha Sterling had done something without expecting anything in return. And it felt strangely like waking up. Over the next month, Natasha changed. She started noticing things she'd been blind to her entire life. The scholarship students who struggled to afford textbooks. The classmates working multiple jobs just to stay enrolled. The way people like Elena made themselves small, trying not to take up space in rooms full of people like her. People who'd never had to worry about where their next meal came from. She started leaving extra food in Elena's locker with anonymous notes. You need to eat. A friend. She accidentally bought duplicate textbooks and left them at Elena's study spot. She helped Maya tutor struggling students without taking credit. And she stayed away from Marcus just like he'd asked. But she thought about him constantly. About his words, his strength, his devotion to his sister. About what it meant to truly love someone selflessly. Elena noticed the changes. The quiet help that never came with strings. The way Natasha no longer tried to use their friendship for anything. You're different, Elena said one day as they studied together. I'm trying to be, Natasha admitted. Why? Because someone showed me who I really was. And I didn't like her. Elena studied her for a long moment. Marcus asks about you sometimes. Natasha's heart skipped. He does. Don't get excited. He just wants to know if you're still bothering me. Elena smiled slightly. I tell him no. That you're actually being a real friend now. What does he say? He doesn't believe me, Elena laughed. He thinks you're playing a long game. The words hurt, but Natasha understood. She'd given him every reason to think that. Tell him. Natasha paused. Tell him I'm not playing anything. I'm just trying to be better. The confrontation with her father came 3 months later. Natasha had been spending more time at the community center where Marcus volunteered, teaching kids from underprivileged backgrounds. She'd started tutoring there, helping with homework, learning what it meant to actually contribute to something bigger than herself. She'd also gotten a part-time job at a bookstore, her first real job ever. The pay was terrible, the work was exhausting, but it was hers. Something she'd earned. She'd even moved out of the family penthouse into a modest apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. She thought her father hadn't noticed. He was wrong. One evening she was called home. Her father sat behind his massive desk, a manila envelope in front of him. Sit down, Natasha. Something in his tone made her stomach drop. He slid the envelope across. She opened it. Photographs. Dozens of them. Natasha at the community center. Natasha working at the bookstore. Natasha laughing with Marcus while helping kids with art projects. A close-up of her face, looking at Marcus with unmistakable affection. You had me followed? Her voice shook with anger. I had my daughter monitored when her behavior became concerning, her father corrected coldly. Working at a bookstore like some common clerk. Living in a tiny apartment. And this. He tapped Marcus's photo. This Marcus Rivera. 3 part-time jobs. Raises his sister on nothing. Night school student. He's a good man. He's poor, Natasha. And you're a sterling. Her father stood. I thought this was a phase. Some rebellion. But now I see it's him. This boy has poisoned your mind. He opened my eyes. To what? Poverty. Her father's voice rose. We built this empire so you'd never have to struggle. And you're throwing it away for what? For him. For myself, Natasha shot back. For the chance to be someone real instead of someone hollow. Her father's face went cold. Look at you in these photos. You're smiling at him like you love him. Natasha's throat tightened. She did. She'd fallen completely in love with Marcus. Not the idea of him but the real person. His strength, his dedication, his refusal to compromise who he was. I do love him. Then let me be clear. Her father's voice dropped to ice. You will stop associating with Marcus Rivera and his kind immediately. You will end this. Whatever this is, return to your proper life or I will cut you off entirely. No trust fund. No inheritance. No credit cards. Nothing. His kind. Natasha stood. You mean good people? People who actually work for what they have. People who care about others more than money. I mean people beneath you. Beneath this family. No, father. I was beneath them. I was spoiled and shallow and cruel. Marcus and Elena showed me what it means to actually matter. Her father's jaw clenched. You have until tomorrow morning to come to your senses. End it with this boy or you're no longer my daughter. And Natasha, you won't survive out there without the sterling name. Natasha looked at the photographs. At her own face, genuinely happy for the first time in her life. Then I guess you're about to find out how strong you actually raised me. She walked out. That night, Natasha packed 2 suitcases with essentials. She left behind the designer clothes, the jewelry, everything that screamed sterling wealth. She wrote a note. Dad, I'm not running away from you. I'm running toward the person I'm supposed to be. I love you, but I love who I'm becoming more. By 3 a.m. she was gone. At dawn, she stood outside Marcus and Elena's apartment building, her 2 suitcases at her feet, terrified but certain. Marcus opened the door in his work uniform, about to leave for his morning shift. He froze. Natasha? What are you? I left. Her voice cracked. My father gave me an ultimatum. Stop seeing you, stop volunteering or lose everything. So I left. I chose this. I chose the life I want to build, not the one I was born into. Marcus stared, processing. You left your family? Your money? Everything. I left the cage, Natasha said, tears spilling over. I'm not here to make this your problem, Marcus. I need to learn how to actually live. To survive on my own. I was hoping maybe Elena could help me find a job. Elena appeared behind Marcus, shocked. You're serious? I've never been more serious about anything. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, torn between concern and something else. Maybe respect. Do you have any money? $300. That's all I took. Everything else is connected to my father. Marcus and Elena exchanged a look. You can stay here, Elena said. On the couch. Until you get on your feet. Elena, I can't. Yes, you can, Marcus interrupted quietly. If you're really doing this, you'll need help. We all need help sometimes. Natasha looked at them, overwhelmed. Thank you. The next 3 months were the hardest of Natasha's life. She got a job waitressing at a diner. The work was brutal. Her feet hurt constantly. Customers were often rude. The pay barely covered her share of rent and food. She learned what it meant to budget. To choose between buying new shoes or eating lunch. To be too exhausted to do anything but sleep. She failed constantly at first. Burned toast. Spilled coffee. Mixed up orders. But she kept showing up. Marcus and Elena watched her struggle. They saw her cry from exhaustion. They saw her hands crack from constant washing. They saw her wake up at 5 a.m. for opening shifts and stumble home at midnight. And they saw her never quit. Slowly, Marcus began seeing her differently. He noticed the way she'd save her tips to buy Elena small gifts. The way she'd volunteer at the community center even when she was exhausted. The way she'd laugh with the kids there, genuinely happy despite having nothing. One evening he found her in the kitchen at 2 a.m., studying for a business exam she'd decided to take. "You don't have to do this," Marcus said quietly. "Yes, I do." Natasha looked up, her eyes tired but determined. "I need to prove, to myself more than anyone, that I can make it on my own." Marcus sat across from her. "You're not who I thought you were. I'm becoming who I should have been all along." "Does it hurt? Losing everything?" Natasha considered. "Sometimes, but mostly, I feel free for the first time in my life." They sat in comfortable silence, both studying, and something shifted between them. 6 months after leaving her father's house, Natasha had transformed completely. She was promoted to shift manager at the diner. She'd enrolled in night classes just like Marcus. She'd moved into her own tiny studio apartment, bare but hers. She'd also become close with Elena, a real friend this time. And with Marcus, something was growing. Slowly, carefully, but undeniably there. One Saturday, Marcus invited her to the park where he and Elena went every week. A tradition from their childhood, one of the few things that reminded them of their parents. They sat on swings while Elena played frisbee with friends nearby. "Can I tell you something?" Marcus said. "Anything." "When you first showed up at our apartment that morning, I didn't believe you'd last a week." Natasha laughed. "Honest. But you did. You lasted a week, then a month, then 6 months. You worked harder than anyone I've ever met. You never complained. You just kept going." "I learned from the best," Natasha said, looking at him. Marcus met her eyes. "I was wrong about you. Completely wrong. You were right about who I was. But maybe I needed someone to see through me to become who I am now." "And who are you now?" Natasha thought about it. Someone who works for what she has. Someone who values people over possessions. Someone who's learning what it means to really love someone, not just want them. Marcus reached over and took her hand. "I'm falling for you, Natasha. The real you." Natasha's breath caught. "Really? Really? You scared me off when you were that rich girl trying to buy my attention. But this woman, the one who shows up tired and broke but still helps kids at the community center, the one who makes Elena laugh, the one who's fighting to build a real life, her I can't stop thinking about." Natasha squeezed his hand, tears in her eyes. "I love you, Marcus. Not because of what you can give me, but because of who you are. You showed me what real strength looks like. You showed me that people can change. That growth is possible." They kissed there on the swings as the sun set, two people who'd found each other through the hardest kind of transformation. 2 years later, Natasha stood in front of the building that would become the Rivera Sterling Community Center. Marcus stood beside her, his arm around her waist. Elena was there too, now graduated and working as a social worker. The center would provide free tutoring, job training, and resources for underprivileged families. Funded partially by Natasha's father, who'd eventually come around after seeing his daughter's genuine transformation. "You did it," Marcus said, kissing her temple. "We did it," Natasha corrected. She looked at the building, then at Marcus, then at the life they'd built together from nothing but determination and love. She'd lost a fortune but gained something priceless, herself. And the love of a man who'd taught her that the best things in life aren't given, they're earned. "Ready?" Marcus asked. "Ready," Natasha smiled. They cut the ribbon together as the community cheered. 3 people who'd started in completely different places but had found their way to each other through struggle, growth, and the kind of love that changes everything. Not because it was easy, but because it was real. Thank you for watching to the end. Hope to see you on our next video. Please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Lots of love.